Up is a weird one for me. If I'm being honest, I didn't really like it for the longest time. The first 15 or 20 minutes are obviously very strong. However, I think it made me want to watch that movie instead. I always felt like Ellie was mostly just used as a device for Carl to grow, and that always left a bad taste in my mouth. She felt like the archetype of the manic pixie dream girl, and I feel like she could have been utilized for so much more than Carl's motivation. My point is, Ellie feels one-dimensional and used as a tool for really only character development. This is unchanging for me, and I feel like because of this, it's always going to have like a weird place in my opinion of the movie. With that said, upon rewatch, I did become warmer to the film overall. One of the first things I experienced was how interested I was in the film for like the first 20 minutes. A quaint little love story that shows the ups and downs of a pretty healthy relationship that eventually ends with Ellie's death. It's a short inside of a larger movie. But the thing is I want to watch that movie first. I know it's a kid's movie, but I feel like there's a more interesting story that's in that little vignette we see of Carl and Ellie's life. And it honestly doesn't require Carl flying his house to South America and finding his old idol. I feel as if Carl's attachment to Ellie is warranted, obviously. However, I think it would have been a far more interesting film to see Ellie and Carl navigate the hardships together throughout the film, and eventually have a different way of exploring how Carl comes to terms with Ellie's impact on his life. The film opens on the new replacing the old theme, which is kind of revisited with how Russell comes in as a pseudo-child for Carl, and he does feel like a combination of Ellie and Carl. I just truly cannot find a reason to sit and enjoy the movie. I think it is apparent, however, that a large part of why Ellie's role may feel diminished, and her general appearance as the manic pixie dream girl, may be due to force from a certain executive at the time at Disney. With all that being said, I do think Up has themes that stand on its own regardless of the faults previously stated. For one, grief is a very central theme in the film. Carl's inability to let go of Ellie as he keeps the entire house as it was since she passed away, all the way to the point of literally carrying his grief on his back as he transports his house around Paradise Falls, is a central theme across the film. His grief, while being his main motivator, is also his main antagonist in my opinion. Of course there's Months being the physical antagonist and the physical embodiment of that. However, throughout the film, Carl actively tries to preserve everything as though Ellie never left, from her side of the bed, her chair, the decorations she put all the way up to the house that they built together, now engrossed in the middle of a large city. Carl's obviously in mourning still, and the way he conducts his life is the biggest clue to this. He's holding on, literally carrying his grief. This can be seen from back when he bought the original tickets to Paradise Falls. He's just trying to continue on with dreams he has held on to from when Ellie was actually alive. He feels like he failed Ellie somehow, and because of this, lies in his guilt as well. He can't let go because he can't get past his perceived failure of giving her the adventure he thought she wanted without understanding that through their life together, he gave her all the adventure that she wanted. This is where Months stands in as a villain. Months is a reflection of Carl in the way that obsession can engross someone. If Carl would have continued on his path, there's a very real possibility he would have shown that he could not let go of his past, just like Months. Months held on to his past, and in that, we see what happens to him in the climax of his film as he is engrossed in his obsession. Up definitely has a lot of interesting themes and obvious heartstring tugs. I became emotional a few times in the film because of Carl's devotion to Ellie, even if it is a little problematic in some ways in my opinion. I just believe that these little pieces of brightness quickly overshadow something that feels like a C to B at best. While I do believe it is one of Pixar's best, I don't believe it is Pixar's best. On to other things, before I continue to complain about the story a little bit more. For one, the animation of course is good. As always, that really isn't much of a controversial statement. It's expressive, colorful, and I think so far the most unique look compared to other Pixar films. Everything feels blocky and angled as opposed to previous films that feel very rounded. It has a very interesting and distinctive look to it that I think lends to knowing which film you're watching at a glance. It becomes easy to pick in the crowd. I struggle to find specific examples or sequences that kind of stick out in my mind. The obvious being the initial takeoff of the house and all the balloons carrying the house. Being simulated is honestly a technical achievement. In all honesty, I didn't really find a wow moment in the movie. The Zeppelin was a really cool design choice for months. Brought out a time and everything, it just felt very steampunkish. And I think truly unique to the film that I haven't seen replicated in future projects from Pixar. As for the music, honestly the best part in my opinion. Michael Giacchino comes back with one of Pixar's best original soundtracks. He brings his most recognizable track for Pixar with the motif from the song Married Life. It's something can be very happy, jubilant, but seconds later it can make you cry many real tears, as I'm sure many did in the Married Life sequence itself. It's used again and again and again, once when Carl goes up as this overwhelming orchestral score, as Carl begins his journey with Russell and conveys the wonder I'm sure anyone would feel flying in their house miles above the earth. The motif, even listening to it now, in its slower sections, demands emotion, and has just this way of thinking happiness you share with someone all the way to the pain you might feel in losing them. It feels very antique, also, the soundtrack as a whole. It has an older style feeling reminiscent of something made in the 40s or 50s at some points, while taking on the orchestral sounds you would hear in any other movie. It almost sounds like retirement music in a funny way, such as the song Kevin Bacon, which I can only describe as Florida sounding music. Extra points for that Kevin Bacon pun there as well, I'm sure Star-Lord would be very happy. Another great title being Giving Months the Bird. Amazing examples of art here, it's truly inspiring. So I'm sure you can kind of tell that this one might be a shorter video. And after a long break, it's kind of odd that it is shorter. I honestly didn't have a lot to say about the movie. I really like it. I know that a lot of people really like it, but there's just some things that I can't get past. Honestly, I know that I don't have many reasons for not liking it as much as the other movies. I think for me it's just a beginning of like a slowdown after seeing Ratatouille and WALL-E back to back. What do I think? Personally, it's obviously not my favorite Pixar film. It's very good, and definitely not Pixar's worst, but it gives me a bad taste from Ellie's role in the plot. It's cute, but it feels like a missed opportunity for a really interesting female protagonist, or a duo, as like a way to flip the duo thing that Pixar has on its head. Instead of friends meeting or like the father-son or grandfather-son dynamic that Carl and Russell have, it would be really interesting to see the wife and husband dynamic, or the grandparents dynamic with Russell if you want to keep Russell. I really think that there's something that could have been done with Ellie. And I don't like how she's just used as a plot device for Carl. I'll give it about an 8, place it below Incredibles and Monsters, Inc. You can also see the Pizza Planet truck here, as well as A113 found here and also here. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this one wasn't a disappointment for you. At least the next one you'll have a good laugh at the movie you have to watch. So closing on that, thank you guys for coming back to watch the newest Pixar film video. I'm getting ready to have another good year. I had a really good year for YouTube this year. Obviously one of the best I think I've ever had ever. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting. Please keep watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.